Lovely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
My dad was dead. He died in 1950, and that was in 1962. 63, I should say.
Right. That's 1953.
Yes, that's
So that is the family, and on, if you can see.
I have my auntie who was a second mother to us.
Okay. And so that's not all of your family, no. Or is it? No.
There was one missing. One of my brothers wasn't home from England in time that day.
Okay.
That was the day they were coming.
Right. That's fabulous. That's a wonderful heirloom in a sense for your family. Brilliant. Just
in heaven, I hope.
Yes, of course. Of course.
Except myself. I'm the only one left there.
Yeah. Your work, what did you work at? Do you want to tell us anything about your working life?
Oh, sure. My working life was helping my mother at the farm. We'd an incubator, and that was for hatching out eggs, like to have chickens. And that was a job in itself, right, to get this tray full of eggs, and they had to be turned. And it was paraphernalia in those days. Like
yes.
Well, I'd work at that. Yeah.
Of course,
etc.
Sure.
Helping to rear the fowl, etc.
You've travelled, and you said that you camogie, you were fond of sport. You played camogie in your early days.
Yeah.
Any other hobbies or interests that you can recall?
Well, sure. That the life that come over was a great interest for me, of course, and
you were successful.
And the whole is in the kitchen, like in the neighbours' kitchens, to all assembled like together, all the neighbours that I knew and loved so well, we'd all dance and sing.
Yes, brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Can you?
Those days there was no grand halls like
no.
all the places nowadays.
Do you remember the first car that maybe your dad had or yourself?
1948, I drove the first car.
Wow.
1948.
And can you remember what car it was or anything about the...
what was the usual cars? What was the usual cars? Tell me what
I suppose Ford's cars were popular,
yeah.
Okay. An Anglia maybe? Okay.
And then for a good while like that, and then I was reduced to the minis.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're still driving, which is should be known. This is marvellous. And I don't mean to make a big deal out of it, but it is brilliant. So,
Well.
is there any historical events that maybe you heard about from your parents, local events that were important or upsetting or anything? Anything at all, maybe to do with 1916 that you might have heard, or even to do with some of the big houses that are around? You mentioned them earlier.
Yeah. My mother would tell me that the black and tans came in. And my dad didn't happen to be here at this particular night. I suppose he was whatever. And she had a whole lot. Now, don't write it down, don't put it there. She had a whole lot of boats up her sons, the 4 lads, they are lined up. And the black and tan, and they wouldn't believe my mother that there were boys' boats.
Yes.
And they went up the stairs anyway and pulled back the clothes, but they were all all boys. There were no lads, there was no lads that be out fighting, you know.
So even your house here, a family house, your house was raided during that time, the Black and Tans.
Well, what would you call that?
Well, they paid you a visit, certainly. The Tans paid you a visit and searched the house, did they?
Well, in the sense, staff it.
Yeah, yeah.
And put back the clothes just to be told, to be realised they were only class boys.
So it wasn't an upsetting event, it was just...
It was for my mother.
Oh, okay.
Not for them. Naturally. You see, those two lads going up.
Of course. Just on this road, if you could help me to work our way around from here to the village and around the village, and if you can tell us the people who lived.
Oh yeah.
As you make your way from, we're at the Bullring, towards Summerhill.
Yeah.
On either side of the road, can you?
First was Jack Manning's.
On the right hand side.
The next was Crunkett's.
Tell us a little about either of those, if you can remember.
Do you not remember Jack Manning?
I do.
Well, you put a...
Give a description of Jack.
Poor Jack. We all loved him. He was one to remember, poor Jack. Well, then Plunkett's, like, we were always told they were descendants of St. Oliver Plunkett's.
Okay.
We were told.
Yes.
And they were, in the sense that one of them, or two of them, is buried over in Lord and Saney's.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, there was, to me, there was 4 grand old men. They were very nice. And that one sister, well, I wouldn't remember her sister until she was a nun. She was a nun in, well, now we call it Swords, out that way.
Mm.
We wouldn't go into Dublin to see her, we'd go out across country.
Yes.
And she was a nun. And when she joined us as a very close daughter, but when my sisters were home, like Mary, my eldest sister, would remember her well, and Mary and I would go to visit her in, we call it Swords now, whatever, and she'd come. Well, now she'd pull back what would I say, a window or whatever, and she'd shut us and be delighted and tell us about Jack Manning.
Oh, right. That was one of the Lady Plunketts. Yeah. And
the bishop asked Jack.
Pardon?
The bishop asked Jack, did all the angels fall? No, my lordship, some of them held their hand. And the nun told us that.
Right. Just continuing with the people you remember, and your earliest memories rather than recent ones. As you continue,
all them are gone, dead.
Yes, but that's important too. As you make your way from Plunkett's
down to Paddy Fitzsimons's was the opposite side.
Yeah, that's right.
And there was the high cottage in those days was Bidley Donnelly's, Bridget Donnelly's.
Bridget Donnelly.
No, at the same size as Plunkett's.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well then, believe it or not, there was no houses in those days until you come to the left-hand side, and the houses, a row of houses to the village.
Cottages there, just before you... Okay,
stuff.
okay. And do you recall who, at that time, would say in the 1920s, who would have lived there?
Well, I know Kyo's was one that was the far end.
Oh.
Kyo's, and Mrs. Markey was another, and she used to look after children, Mrs. Markey. And
Were
there 4?
Were Connors there?
Yeah, Jack Connor, of course, and well, I suppose that'd be it now, would it be? Well, anyway, they lived on and there was no house then till you came to Holmes's.
Opposite the stores there, was there another house directly opposite?
Are they not all new houses?
Look at it, you could be right. You could be right.
There are new houses.
Okay. And you don't recall when that house was built? I thought that was older, but perhaps it's not. Was it Tipping? Was Tipping's the name? That lived opposite Holmes, if you like.
Oh, that was the Garage Barracks.
Yeah, and a little bit as you go towards here, as you go towards Rathmalina on the right, yeah, the first house there after the barracks.
Well, I would be putting down them as all newer houses.
Okay, sure. Now the barracks, what do you remember about that? And that,
Yeah, I remember the barracks.
that was the RIC barracks.
No, the ordinary barracks.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was originally maybe the RIC and then the Garda barracks, was it?
Yeah, and I remember that the sergeant was Sergeant Fitzpatrick.
All right.
Now he was the sergeant, and he had a nice lot of men, and they were all them, like the few that was there were very interested in football.
Right.
Football.
Right.
And there was a Gareth Murphy, and he married Oliver Fitzsimons.
All right. Right. Now that's just so we know, that is opposite the stores, if you like. It's the other side of the road from the shop. That barracks is.
I can't think that there was any other house till we met you or your Holmeses.
Yeah, but the present day Garda barracks, that wasn't there at that time, was it?
Oh no.
No. So it's the other side of the
Oh,
road.
the opposite, at the corner.
At the corner. Yeah. That's fine. Now moving down from that, I think there were a couple of thatched cottages on the Dangan Road, beside the.
Well, all I know would be where Hugh Bryan lived.
Okay.
Like was born and reared.
And can you describe where that was?
Do you remember Hugh?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Hugh lived in one of them, and Mickey was another. A many have to get.
No, whatever you can remember. But me.
And I remember Mary. And she had a little shop. And of course I remember.
Would that be Judy Martin?
Judy Martin. Yeah.
And was she married to Mickey Melia? Or am I mixed up? She was.
She was.
Okay.
Well, she married like she was. She was Julia Martin, but he was a German.
Yes. Okay.
Like there's a bit of history about her in late times. They talked about.
Yes.
Yeah. And I tell you, who'd be telling me that gossip. Jack Lynch,
Yes.
Allen Lynch.
Yes.
You know, that
Yes.
fella be telling me about it. But wait now, what's the question now?
So there were two after the Garda barracks, which was once the RIC barracks, I think. There was two thatched cottages there. You've mentioned both of them.
Yeah, well, then we have those two.
And the other side of the road, then, can you?
Mary Talon.
Talon. Okay.
Talon.
That was the first house, was it, on the Dangan side? Would that be right?
Well, wait now. Where did May Wester live? Wasn't it that side?
Yes, I believe so. So.
Well, that'd be account for that. And then she'd meet Norca, tell you'd meet them at Cornwall's, the big house.
But what was her maiden name? May's maiden name?
May Faraday.
Yeah. Okay. And did Tom Fields have a garage there at one time?
Well, that was on the left-hand side. He came from Enfield on the left-hand side.
Okay.
But it could be like where Eugene Bryan was born and reared.
Oh, I see. After Eugene's time, after Eugene moved on.
Eugene's mother died, and the dad married again and got a land commission up in Ballygorta. That's where Eugene spent most of his days. Eugene and Sean Bryan, and he had 2 sisters.
Oh, of course, right.
Yeah.
The little Boreen that was down at the side of...
I don't think anyone lived down there.
Okay, all right.
Down where the waterworks is now.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
There was no one down there.
Moving on.
And to me, like that.
No, that's fine. Up the village. Shaws might be the next then on that side. You can remember the Shaws, I'm sure, in the early days.
Still is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remember the family, I'm sure. And Fields is then after that? Okay. In the... Beside Fields is...
You see, Fields is about the O'Neill's house, the bakery.
Okay. Do you want to tell us anything about O'Neill's that you would have known?
Well, I do know in the sense, as I told you,
Yeah.
that they made the bread for the castle and for the people at the Summer Hill.
Indeed, yeah. Indeed.
And there was old Mr. O'Neill and Mrs. O'Neill, and there was Molly, and there was 2 sisters and 3 brothers in
Right.
the O'Neills,
Right.
and one that became a Christian brother in America.
Oh. Right. Brilliant.
So,
The house then after that, there were 3 large houses. There
Oh,
still are 3 large houses. Who lived, can you recall?
I
the first?
of course I remember Master Gogarty and his wife and poor Noel who died young. She was at school in Dublin
Okay.
and got appendix and she was buried, and that was a very, very sad time. And I think it was about in 1932, but anyway, it's a long time ago. And the poor girl was brought to Duncan, and then brought to her. She was buried in Trim.
Right.
There was no graveyard in Duncan at that time.
I see. Okay.
No old Gogarty.
The house then in the middle, the Gogarty's was the last of the 3 houses. The middle house?
Dr. Corby.
Dr. Corby. Right. Do you
And
remember?
there was Graham's was a low house.
Okay. And Dr. Corby and his wife, did they have a family?
No.
Okay. And the house then beside O'Neill's, the large house beside O'Neill's, the first of them.
Well, how many houses are there big?
There's 3.
Oh, well, I've only 2.
Well, were Higginses there in your day?
Do you see, I said, Dr. Corby, and I said the Gogartys.
Yeah.
But I couldn't put well.
O'Higginses?
I put in the other one.
Do you remember O'Higginses? Master? There were two there, I believe they were both teachers.
Wait now. Where are we now?
The very first house of the big houses
Was it Higgins?
after O'Neill's. Yeah, no. The smaller house then on the other side, was it called the dispensary?
And Graham's.
Anne Graham's, okay. And why was it called the dispensary?
Sure, that's where we went.
That's where the surgery was, where the doctor
Where
was.
we went for our cough bottles.
Right.
Yeah?
The doctor didn't actually stay there, did they? They just went there to...
Sure, he lived in one of the big houses.
That was Dr. Corby.
That was the dispensary,
Yeah, okay.
the small house.
And Graham's.
And then Graham's was next.
Can you remember the Grahams? Yeah. Any of the...
A big family of Grahams and men.
Right.
And Gary. And she, the mother and the dad. And then the dad, his job was to bring the post from Enfield to Summerhill and back, like, with the letters. The Graham man,
Yes, yes.
the father,
Right,
Hugh Graham or something.
right.
Anyway,
And as you move on then up towards the other end of the village, can you remember any more houses on that left-hand side? Any more
well,
people?
wait now, where are we?
Well, we say after
Miss
Graham's.
Kelly, the Kelly, had a grand shop.
Mary Kelly. Okay,
And then, of course, Miss Cogerty.
right. Can you remember? Can you remember the Miss Christie?
Going in, and of course, the dad had a mill, like old Ned Cogerty had a mill, and the mother and had a little shop, and had her, as well as the post office, she had her little wares hanging on a line, on her drapery.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You said Ned.
That was Cogerty.
Yeah.
Miss Kelly had a good, like every day, the groceries, and you know, we go into Miss Kelly like for the groceries.
Yes, yes. And before that, the Miss Christies. Do you remember them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The two Miss Christies, dressmakers.
Sure. Mm.
Lord,
There was an old IRC barracks there at one time. I can't remember. I think it burned down. I can't remember the date. Do you happen to recall?
no, I wouldn't be able to help you
No,
there.
that's fine. And you may remember the Barnards, would you? Tom Barnard and his wife.
And Miss Barnard married a Fitzsimons.
That's right.
I think they used to call her Harty Barnard. Married the Fitzsimons man.
That's right. Yes. And the first shop then on the other side of the green, the
Was Hannah's.
was Hannah's. Do you recall the Hannah family? Do you remember any of the names, any of that family?
Well, sure, there was boys, and they had the shop, but he married a Miss McKay from Clondalkin.
Oh,
She was a lovely girl. But what I did hear about their son, they went to America,
okay.
and I think that I hear some of them died in recent years.
I think Donny was his name. Yes, I believe so. Yeah, that's right. After that, then the next cottage, as you go down the village again from
Come back up.
Okay, yeah.
Was Loughlin's. Was McLaughlin's.
Okay.
Burns. Allen's. There was two Miss whoever they were, and they used to come down for fair days. Oh, well, now just at the moment I can't think. And along there was Fitzsimons, and there was Nurse Farrell. But much more. You get in.
You remember Tully's?
I don't know how many houses.
Do you remember Tully's? Tully's.
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 Ah, well, wait now, do you see? They weren't always there. He was a guard and came in.
Sure, yeah, yeah. And moving down a little bit more, there were 3 more houses then, I think. Were Nelson's the last house there?
Nelson's was the end house.
Okay.
The first house, we say.
Okay.
Yeah. And where do you go from there?
Do you remember any of that family? The Nelsons?
I went to school with Aggie, and Fanny married a McLaughlin,
Okay.
and Tom married somebody too. To Tom Nelson.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Do you remember Alina Nelson? I believe she lived near Shannon's.
And she was married. She was Mrs. Lena Nelson. And her husband worked in the asylum long ago in Mullingar.
Okay. What did you say his name was?
And he used to cycle on his bike down to Mullingar,
wow.
up and down.
Right. Do you recall his name?
But Lena had that one daughter.
Okay.
And she's not that long dead, the daughter.
That may have been Maureen, was it?
I can't put the first name of that man, but I can see him on the bike going he never, of course there was no buses to suit him or nothing then, he went on his bike he was working in the asylum.
Okay.
In Mullingar.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you remember when the Garda, what we call the new Garda barracks was built? Can you remember that?
Ah, well, yeah, we're going, that's modern.
Yeah, okay. And was there attached cottage there? Sorry.